on the way, but man, they're starting to send a message here. Give me what, your main narrative, what you saw last night. What happened to the Panthers?
Well, I don't want to take anything away from what's going on with Vegas because I think they're playing their very best hockey of the entire year right here and now, which is often what happens when a team has a chance to win the Stanley Cup. But I will tell you that I absolutely, which I suspected could be a factor, believe that the Panthers having 9 days off between games really killed their momentum. And this has happened in the past. You guys know this. But it's, for whatever reason, this sport, I think more than almost any other sport, having that long a layoff can really get you out of rhythm. Which is not to say the series is over, of course. Panthers are back home and they'll be revved up in front of home crowd. But that's certainly one factor. The second factor is I think this is the biggest, most physical team the Panthers have played in their amazing journey here. They beat an historical regular season team in Boston. They upset an offensively dangerous team in the Leafs. And, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes, who finished, I think, third or fourth in the overall standings this year. But none of those teams are as big and physical and imposing as Vegas. And that, from being in the rink for the first 2 games in Vegas, that really came through. And that's not nothing. Like, some teams can say, okay, we're not as big as Vegas. Let's find another way to beat them. And certainly the Oilers felt they could do that in the second round. But the problem with Florida is that has been their edge in getting here,
right,
and in surprising their opponents, is that they've kind of been the nasty, edgy, in-your-face physical team, and in particular really gave Toronto, for example, issues with that in the second round. And that's just been nullified completely with the way Vegas is coming at them physically.
So on the topic of VGK size, we've seen the Golden Knights have dudes in front of Bobrovsky blocking the vision a lot. Is size the main part of that, or is a big part of it just poor execution by Florida?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both for sure in that. I mean, listen, it's also give credit to Vegas' blue line. You're going to say, well, why am I talking about the blue line when we're talking about Vegas' forwards getting to Bobrovsky? Because I think that there's been some really smart play from the blue line as far as what kind of shots are getting through in terms of waiting for your forwards to be positioned in front of Bobrovsky. All of those things are all sort of tied into each other. And I think, Vegas' 6D have been phenomenal at finding the right lanes and the right timing to launch their point shots. And I think that's a real understated, underplayed part of today's game, to be honest. It's not about the slap shot anymore, as you guys know. It's just about finding lanes and getting pucks through. And I think Vegas has done that really well. But again, Sergei Bobrovsky has not looked like the Sergei Bobrovsky that we saw in these playoffs. I mean, for those that really dig the goalie stats and the analytical goalie stats, his goals saved above expected, especially in the latter round of the Boston series and against the Leafs, was through the roof, almost historical. And we've not seen any version of that so far in this series. And, I think one of the concerns internally for the Panthers eventually is that if you look at Sergei Bobrovsky the last few years, after he's played a pretty long stretch of games, he tends to tire out and need a break, just to put it bluntly. Mm-hmm. And it's been a long stretch here. So we'll see whether just getting pulled in game 2 is enough of a break, especially the double off days.
Once again, speaking with Pierre LeBrun, TSN, and also NHL columnist for The Athletic. Pierre, you and I were both at media availability in between games 1 and 2, and the topic of physicality came up to both Paul Maurice and the guys that were on the dais. And I had even asked Sam Reinhart, is there a fine line between physicality and, as the opposition is gaining ground, gaining momentum, and furthering their lead, it becomes frustrating physicality? Are you seeing that instead of baiting Vegas, they're sort of baiting themselves and becoming frustrated, and they're sort of playing out of character eventually? They start out with their character of physical play, but then they get out of character by allowing it to get out of hand.
Yes, and I think, listen, it's so easy for us in the press box to say, oh, that crossed the line, that crossed the line. I mean, one thing I've always tried to remember, 28 years now covering the NHL, is those players on the ice, when they're trying to play right on the edge, right on the line, which is what brings the best out of them when they're right on that line. Boy, it's so emotional. And it doesn't take much to cross it. And I think the Panthers have crossed it here at times in the opening 2 games, and it's really cost them. The reality is that they've been one of the most penalized teams in the league the entire year, right? From day one. This is who they are. But when they can just channel it enough and stay on that line, it works for them. It really, it got under the skin of the Bruins. Remember Hallmark going after Kachuk?
Yeah.
It got under the skin of the Leafs. All kinds of stuff happening in that series. But you have to be right on that line. And I think of, for example, Brandon Montour, a terrific defenseman for Florida, basically punching Marchessault on the back of the head right on that roughing penalty. That's not, he knows he can't do that. But that's I think the frustration that has been building up early this series for Florida against Vegas. And kudos to the Golden Knights. I think especially about Alex Pietrangelo. How many times has he been punched in the head so far this series and not retaliated? And even more so credit to how disciplined and veteran this Vegas team is. That was an unbelievable. I mean, that'll go down as one of the most famous body checks in Stanley Cup final history. Matthew Tkachuk on Jack Eichel, and I know that there are Vegas fans upset at hearing that. It just will.
Yeah.
Like we're going to be talking. That's what I wrote about in the Athletic last night, this morning. That hit will be like we'll be talking about it in 30 years.
Yes.
I mean, even if Vegas wins the Cup, which right now they're heavily favored to do after being up 2-0, that hit will be a lasting memory because it involves, first of all, two special players. And so you don't see that to begin with, and B, it was a clean hit. Thank goodness Jack Eichel's okay. I mean, obviously, myself and everyone else alive in the rink, I'm thinking about a surgically repaired neck. But so happy to see him come back. And also after the game, just say, hey, that was on me, man.
Yep.
I mean, that's leadership from Jack Eichel, in my opinion, not to want to stir the pot. His team's up 2-0. And deep down, we all know this. He's friends with Matthew Tkachuk, so that's probably part of it too. But that was a great hit. But what I'm about to get to, and I'm kind of going too long here, is that the way the Golden Knights reacted to that hit with their discipline was phenomenal. Yeah, okay, a bit of a scuffle, but in terms of not letting it destroy their focus the rest of the period, the rest of the night, that was phenomenal discipline by Vegas.
Once again, we're speaking with senior columnist from The Athletic, Pierre LeBrun. And you're right. I read that column this morning, and I'm going to retweet it. And you just covered the angle, but I want everyone that's listening, if you're interested in reading it, Pierre not just broke it down in a column, but he got quotes. And I was amazed. I'm sitting there. I'm picturing you, press row, texting everybody for quotes. Gerard Gallant. He's got former NHL players, current NHL players, coaches. He's got quotes with them breaking down the hit itself and their thoughts. A couple of the requested anonymity. So it's a great read, and I'll make sure I put it at the top of my Twitter. But Pierre, I really want to talk about Adin Hill because this is a kid who, if you'd have told anybody in Golden Knights land, hey, we're going to get this kid from San Jose. First of all, I remember how they reacted when they hired Peter DeBoer. You bring in Adin Hill. If there's anybody that's grown up and gone from elementary school to middle school and high school in one season, this kid has done it.
Yeah, and played Arizona, and then the Sharks got him. And I remember when San Jose got him, they truly felt there was something on top there. And it obviously didn't happen for him in San Jose. The Sharks, of course, didn't help that they were starting to slide down the scale of the team and their defensive performance in front of them. But I remember talking to the Sharks organization, and they're like, you know what, this guy can be a one. They truly believe that, and now we're finally seeing it. And obviously, kudos to Sean Burke, right, director of goaltending for the Vegas Golden Knights, who, Golden Knights fans remember the work that Sean Burke did in Arizona years ago with Devin Dubnyk and Ilya Bryzgalov. I mean, he made all those guys look like Vezina Trophy winners with his work, and I think some of his magic is rubbing off again here this year with the Golden Knights having to go through 74 goalies? Not 74, right?
Yeah, it's
okay.
About that, yeah.
Okay, and so he's a great story. And listen, I mean, I will say this right now before this Cup final started, and this is not at all a criticism of Adin Hill, but it's just, again, a fact. If Vegas wins the Cup, is he one of the more unheralded goalies to win a Cup, in a long time? I mean, that doesn't mean you're not playing great and don't deserve it. It just means that your resume isn't as thick, right? And I think you'd have to put him up there with maybe Antti Niemi, who had an unbelievable run with the 2010 Blackhawks. But you know what I mean? I mean, it's sometimes either it's a guy who catches lightning in the ball when it matters most, or it's the beginning of something great. And it could very much be that for Adin Hill. But it's a phenomenal story because you go into the last two series, you go into the Western Conference Final, you're like, How is Adin Hill going to outplay Jake Ottinger? Well, he did.
Yeah.
And again, there's team play involved and all that. And again, I think the Vegas blue line is arguably the best in the NHL. But still, you still got to stop the puck. And he's done that. And now you go into the Cup final and you look at Sergei Bobrovsky's Conn Smythe argument, which was legit entering this series, right? And you're like, how's he going to outplay Sergei Bobrovsky? Well, not even been close. So it's pretty cool story for Adin Hill.
By the way, how was the trip to Florida?
Well, it started at midnight at the airport in Vegas. Then they went through Atlanta in the morning, and then eventually I got to my hotel in Florida around 11 a.m. And about 1 p.m. I went for a long nap and woke up missing a 3-team trade in the NHL. So I wasn't very happy about that.
Hey, last 30 seconds. What, down 2-0. That's an interesting market. I'll call it interesting from a hockey standpoint. What do you think the atmosphere will be like inside the arena in Sunrise?
Well, I was here for the second round when the Leafs played here, and I got to say I was really impressed. I mean, this has not been a market, as you know, and an arena that's been particularly full over the years. There's a reason for that. They went 26 years without winning a playoff series. I don't care how good your market is sports-wise. That's going to hurt. But I tell you what, against the Leafs in the second round, you couldn't hear yourself in the arena. I mean, they came out, and same thing last round from what I could tell against Carolina. So I think you'll feel that back home in Vegas, if you're watching Vegas fans, that despite being down 2-0 and everything else, pretty special being the Cup final. Well, I think you'll hear a pretty vibrant crowd here in South Florida.
Pierre, you're awesome, man. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us on relatively short notice and on short sleep.
Absolutely, anytime. Right on, right on.
All right, we'll see. There he is, Pierre LeBrun, very well-known hockey insider all over North America, especially in Canada, where he's a hockey insider for TSN, and he's also a columnist for The Athletic. We're going to check in with our own Darren Millard from LV Sports Network in about 15 minutes. He's in Florida, so we'll catch up with him.